about that, huh? What a treat.
Dante Marino from his EP Aquarius, Blue Soul.
Wow, that's a beautiful, beautiful song. If that don't elevate your level of consciousness, I don't know what will.
It's like singing to my heart.
We have a big evening for you. Last week we talked about self-observation, and this week we're talking about the gatekeeper. So, provided that you've observed yourself enough and taken enough fresh photographs of yourself and developed this wonderful aspect within you, now it's time to talk about this gatekeeper, and it's a absolute pivotal.
And this isn't the Ghostbusters. There was the gatekeeper in the Ghostbusters.
Oh.
But kind of like that.
Look at that. Wait a second. Look. You're out of focus in that one camera. Isn't that a shame?
Oh, well, we can keep going.
Man. No, you keep going.
Okay.
And then I'll just fix this thing.
It's kind of like the Ghostbusters right now. I'm like kind of a blurry holographic non-entity. So, self-observation, and now we're going to lead into the gatekeeper.
Yeah, what she said. That was good. That was really nice, right? Yeah, what she said. No, it's so important to continue these efforts, a genuine effort, an effort that takes place through the present moment. And being present is nice, but it's really what to do when you're present, and that allows you to actively get used to living on the other side. It's one thing to sit in meditation and become present, which is really beautiful. It's another thing entirely to bring that presence with you and to use it to evolve and to eventually get to a place where your learning curve is a constant. There's a constant moment-to-moment existence, but you're actively participating in the moment in accord with nature.
And exploring full potentiality. Because that's what, a seated repose, you get to dive into full potentiality in a contained space. But then also when we're moving from a moment-to-moment basis with awareness, you get to harness and shape space. We talked about a little bit last week too, as you become more and more present with what's around you. It's easy to get distracted these days. We can go into virtual portals, emotional portals, art portals,
Art portals, oh
dream portals.
Oh,
we could get distracted
dream
by our
portals.
imaginary portals.
You are stepping into the dream portal world with Suzanne Toro and Thomas Orlani. Yeah, well, then there's that. It's not hocus pocus. It's not even. It's just work, and it's a type of work that. It's a reap-sow type of work. Every moment that you become present adds to your level of being, and that level of being allows you to see the world with a fresh pair of eyes. And it's through those fresh pair of eyes where we can make good choices and be of service to our neighbors and be of service to our communities and our state and our country and to our world, to be a beacon of light.
And
be that rock in the middle of the ocean just where everybody finds sanctuary.
Well, and there's a beautiful aspect I was reflecting on the beginner's mind, is that oftentimes in life, especially in our on-demand culture, and we forget that we can bring the beginner's mind to every moment, and there's a lot of curiosity, and a small child doesn't miss out on much in a space because they're so curious and they're present with all the things that are available to them in that moment. So presence does bring us to more of that beginner state of mind where we see the opportunities. We're not like, oh, here I am again. It's like, wow, what's available here? And all of a sudden, all these things become magical tools around you that you didn't even notice maybe the day before.
Absolutely. And so this gatekeeper. So once we've taken these photographs of ourselves, captured ourselves through the present moment, in ideally emotional circumstances, we're able to apply a very common exercise called the stop exercise, which it's basically an adult timeout. Timeout, but it's not a timeout to analyze. It's a timeout to reflect and to capture a photograph of oneself and to add to one's sense memory, add to one's memory of how one feels in a given set of circumstances. so that we can assess a series of experiences that inform us now, that don't take into account old biases held against us when we were 6 years old when we wet the bed, or old situations where you maybe in high school you stood up to give a speech and you were uptight and you just feel like you're no good at giving speeches. Old preconceptions, old fears, negativity, tough experiences, maybe really brutal experiences, maybe abuse experiences, and how we can rediscover ourselves for the first time. And this can take, this could be a lifetime process, but it does lead to something. And if you're doing it genuinely, diligently, on a moment-to-moment basis, you don't have to do it indefinitely. It adds up to something that allows you to free yourself of all of that and to get onto the other side and just be and act as being, act. And that's really what this entire series of conversations is about. It's about how to take action from a true perspective, how to really act, how to really impose your will, how to be a difference without you being a victim of your own circumstances, how to gain, how to move ahead, how to experience life fully, and how to be there. And that's where this self-observation comes in. It adds up to something that we had mentioned. It's equivalent to a file in a file cabinet that has all the sacred best information for your company in it, all the secrets of your company,
Your cosmic selfies.
all the great things, all the reasons why that business is going to be a success, and each time you take a photograph, it adds to the file, adds to the file, adds to the file, and eventually it's the largest file in the cabinet, and it dominates and takes precedent over all the other files. And when it gets to that point, the gatekeeper emerges. A gatekeeper can discern the difference between right and wrong. And as we talked about this a little earlier, like right and wrong is determined based on what somebody wants. And all of our decisions are centered around what it is that we want. So if we want that education.
Or need. Want or need.
What it is that we want, what we conscientiously want, and how we conscientiously go about attaining what it is that we want. So for the individual on the path of enlightenment, what does a person on the path of enlightenment want?
Well, they're looking for nirvana. And so, a person on the path of enlightenment wants enlightenment, to find their enlightenment, their freedom, their liberation.
Ideally, higher states of consciousness.
Right.
They're looking to evolve within their own life and to simplify things to such a degree where they can be an active participant within it without having fear, without being a victim of negativity, without being a victim of anything, but being actually a responsible, active participant in whatever happens in life. It allows us more freedom, allows us liberty.
Right.
Right?
Absolutely.
Allows us, and then what you said, whatever this nirvana is, or Shangri-La, or bliss, or just the bliss of being an active participant in relation to the earth, in relation to your community, in relation to your families, in relation to the moment at hand. And those are great, powerful things, and those people that can attain that are at peace.
Right.
Within the storm, they're at peace. Within the hurricane, they're at peace. But in a way in which you're looking to engage on how to balance a set of circumstances.
Well, you become in service to the moment, really. You're a peaceful
service to the moment. Wonderful.
You're
Look at that.
A peaceful conduit. So.
A peaceful conduit.
Yeah.
There you go. There's a very strong P in my.
Sorry.
No, that's me. That was me pawing into my mic.
So we have all these photographs, and we're gonna start to feel the ones that are juiced up and leading us to our gatekeeper.
No, all the photographs, if you're actually photographing. And I'm not talking about an analysis of a moment. I'm talking about just capturing yourself in the moment.
Right. Observing it.
In whatever emotional condition that you're in. And the better you get at this, the more you want to catch yourself at a high emotional state. Like, how am I when I do this? And what that it allows you to then begin to take this next step, and which is transform the moment in order to and observe it for what it is, and then transform it into a higher substance. Getting good. That's when you're. But that's the next level of evolution, where you're actually able to transform negativity, and that's a different talk. Right now, we're just talking about being able to discern our sensory impressions, and what do we take in and what do we leave out, and how do we make that decision. Well, the enlightened person wants to evolve. So all those things that help you evolve are good, and all those things that keep you from evolving are bad. So our life can determine what's good or what's bad.
Right. And sometimes we're tricking ourselves. Sometimes we're tricking ourselves. We might feel that something is good for us, and isn't actually good for us.
Suzanne wants to talk about what tricks you, and I think that's a whole other show, all the things that trick you, because I think that's a rabbit hole that's as deep as space itself. But the solutions to that problem, I think, are very limited at best, and that is based on what you want. And if what you want is something else, then being tricked can be a part of the journey. But if what it is that you want, and if that gatekeeper is educated, he's not going to be tricked, and that's what makes him. That we all have a gatekeeper now, right? And he's asleep at the gate. Right. Or he wakes up every once in a while when he needs to because it's important, and then he goes back to sleep.
Right.
And whatever happens enters into that gateway, and there's nobody discerning what's good from bad, what's good from bad. And so I don't know if you've ever had a nightmare, but I think that's the body trying to work its sense impressions out relative to the gatekeeper falling asleep. And if the gatekeeper is strong, then there's an ability to collect all of these wonderful objective impressions of what you really are, not what you've been, not what somebody else thinks you should be, not what a society thinks you should be, not anything, just your impression of yourself. And that gives you what we call self-esteem, gives you a confidence within yourself to know what the truth is about you. So if somebody, if the world challenges you on your value, some people have a net worth, and some people have a self-worth. So it's important to have that self-worth by collecting accurate data about your existence.
Well,
so if the world wants to challenge you and put you down, or try to drag you through the mud, or stomp on your head, you can look at them with empathy and understand that they have their own issues to deal with, right?
Well, so the steep is simple for the audience right now. The pictures are going to start to accumulate, and you will start to observe yourself, and you'll be very clear as to where your jagged edges rise up and where your strengths are. That's all. And then you have the opportunity to create shifts based on what you want and or need. And that gatekeeper is going to help you discern what's ultimately truly going to feed your system, put deposits into your cosmic bank account and into your momentary bank account as you continue to build those efforts, So you
got to ask yourself, is your gatekeeper asleep or is he awake? And if he's really awake, ooh, look at that. We got some serious issues there. Look at that. Hi, how are you? How's it going?
There they go.
Hey, we're coming back.
Guess the gatekeeper was asleep for a moment.
I guess our gatekeeper.
Thank you, gatekeeper.
Yeah, he came back awake. Came back to wake again. Woo, there we are. That's an important question to ask yourself. And if you feel your gatekeeper's awake and certain things slip in, like that group of friends you got that takes you out and just destroys you for the next several years of your life, and you go like, wow, how did I wind up here? How did I wind up? Well, it's a good thing they don't ask for bail in California. But how did I wind up here? You'll know that the gatekeeper had fallen asleep, and that consciousness was not at the forefront of.
You had a good time in Dante's Inferno.
Hey, sometimes you run out of time. Sometimes it's too.
Space.
Sometimes time runs out in terms of you only have so many more opportunities to get to the top of the mountain, and so the efforts that you make as time moves on require energy and effort and purpose. And so as time moves on, sometimes it's more difficult to make those sorts of efforts as you get older. But sometimes even death can be an inspirer to, start paying attention. Like oh wow, I just haven't been paying attention my whole life, and now here I am facing the pearly gates, and I haven't been paying attention. And a lot of the time, that's when people start to wake up. That can be a painful awakening.
Well, helping people, since I help people in hospice or at the end of their life, people start to give away certain things they've been holding on to. It's really a beautiful process to watch across the board. Certain things universally shed, which I've observed many times over. And so, but at that gateway, you can liberate so much, and you can take many great efforts for sure.
Yeah, but it's nice to make that choice before you get there. Then life can be so much more interesting, couldn't it?
Absolutely.
Right? You can be actually living while you're living instead of thinking you're dying while you're living.
Well, a little clue, I don't know if you'll agree with it, but one clue to help stay awake is to be in service. It shifts. It's kind of like gratitude. It shifts the impressions that you're leaving for yourself and others. And it actually helps elevate you into higher states of consciousness, especially if you have difficult times. It's a really powerful tool. And we saw a lot of that here, people going out and making meals and helping people, and that shifts the state of being versus being stuck in like, ooh, this sucks, which is easy to do sometimes when there's global pandemics going on. Sometimes you shift your perspective. Instead, you could just be of service the best you can in each moment. And that shifts the pictures that you're taking and shifts your relationship to your gatekeeper. The gatekeeper wakes up and starts to notice how you serve and how it feeds you,
Well, just keep in mind that the modes are moving through the present. We can take photographs of ourselves, non-judgmental photographs, don't have to analyze, just capturing yourself in life in particular moments, using the stop exercise or the adult timeout, which allows you to begin to capture the truth of a moment, which then could give you the ability to begin to transform the moment, that's the muscle you're starting to work. But as you collect these images, you're then educating your gatekeeper,
yeah.
And so it's good to
or your gatekeeper's educating you. We don't know. Your gatekeeper might be waking up and saying, hey.
Hopefully you become the gatekeeper.
Absolutely.
But the idea is, this idea of woke or awakening or wake up would be to wake up the gatekeeper.
Absolutely.
And so that idea of consciousness begins with that gatekeeper staying awake and assimilating all of these sensory impressions, the deep impressions, and the billions and billions of bits of information that our brains receive through all of our senses.
Yeah. And that's what this epoch's about right now, is to be awake, according to some of the traditional Hopi leaders. It's a time of awakening, self-awakening. So there's a lot of juicy stuff available to us.
Well, imagine that. Like a gatekeeper is just a microcosm of what's also the macrocosm of gatekeeper would be collective consciousness, right? When collective consciousness begins when people start becoming diligent, becoming aware of what's going on around them, and evolving to the point where they can take action and make good moves for the society as a whole, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, as each one of us awakens, we start to see where we can shift and how we can better serve. As you said, feed ourselves. We talked a little bit about that. What are the foods that we're feeding ourselves? How are we elevating our consciousness? And those sustained efforts, it's like putting jet fuel into your engine and, maybe spinning around with Dante.
Yeah, well, we'd all have to ask ourselves why. What would be the purpose? To enlighten, to evolve, to be freer, to feel like you have a choice, to have a choice, to liberate the stress experience, the civil experience, which can be very rule-laden, lots of regulations, lots of supposed to's, lots of PC sorts of perspectives.
A lot of shoulds and buts.
A lot of shoulds and buts, right? That's very good. Lots of shoulds and buts. Lots of shoulds and buts.
And don'ts.
Shoulds and buts and don'ts.
which are all
That's
not
hilarious.
to our benefit.
No, no, not at all. Well, listen, let's go into a little bit of Dante again, and we're
Blue
gonna
soul.
little blue soul.
You could tell a little story about the blue Kachina when we come back in, if you like.
Yeah, and let's listen to a little bit more Dante.
This is Dante Marino, his EP Aquarius, and we're going to listen to Blue Soul.
I know I can't wait around here no more. I paid my toll, I won't take your disapproval. And you know I never really felt love before. Never opened your door. Blue, oh, I know we can still love more. Lay down, see sound, taste words and feel your blue soul. Inside my dreams, you're so alive. Tanzanite, help me open my eyes. And I know, 'cause I feel you in my soul. So let it go and feel blue soul. Oh, I know we can still love more. Lay down, see sound, taste.
That
That was us whispering about Dante Marino from his album and his power of now and his ability to be God just by adjusting our consciousness, which is a great question. You know, a lot of times externally we seek someone to do it for us. And, you know, this whole topic is about us taking effort for ourselves and that we can adjust our own consciousness and rise to higher states of being, vibrate up in heaven here on earth.
Thomas Artabani and Suzanne Toro coming back from our little break with Dante from the, what was that?
It was the EP Aquarius, and that was Blue Soul.
Blue Soul.
Yeah.
And we were talking about the gatekeeper and how we move from the present moment into self-observation, and then educating our gatekeeper. And we were paralleling that to society,
Yep.
and also comparing that to whether we're have been awakened or not. And if our gatekeeper is sleeping, then we're asleep, and if our gatekeeper wakes up, then we're awake. And a lot of times, the gatekeeper just kind of hangs out and does nothing and lets everything in, which leads to a potentially toxic set of circumstances for us as human beings.
Absolutely.
Like, we can go wrong on many different levels. We can go wrong on an instinctual level. We can go wrong on an emotional level, an intellectual level.
Spiritual level.
Our spiritual level. Our bodies can break down. We can go wrong on all sorts of things. And our choices are actually reflective of how much difficulty we do have with our physiology, right?
Well, yeah, from a Buddhist perspective, they basically will, from Ayurvedic and Chinese medicine, and I think even in the Tao, the body gives us signals as the karma was never liberated or set free. And we have the power within ourselves to reconcile all our choices at some point in time. And so when we come into our body, we might have hindrances, and those are from our past actions, from a Buddhist or a reincarnation model, not a one life model.
So those injuries can obstruct.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and sometimes your karma ripens in the middle of life, and all of a sudden maybe you're in a wheelchair, or all of a sudden that was that point where you kind of ran out of your deposits on a certain respect, and the body ripened some karma. But it doesn't mean that you have to fall away. That's the best time to evolve and rise up higher. especially when you're met with those hindrances, whether they're in the emotional, physical, mental, or spiritual body.
So ideally, the gatekeeper, in a formative part of our evolution, wakes up, so
Right.
that physiologically, we don't hinder or injure ourselves to the point of not being able to recover.
Right, absolutely.
Right.
And, athletes teach us this really well. They're very proactive because they're working towards excellence and mastery. And even certain artists, they're really, maybe more adept at setting things a certain way. It might seem too strong for some people, but they know they have to do certain things to evolve. When we interviewed Martina Hoffman, which was interesting, she's like in her game, she's in her mastery. So she's like, I don't have to do anything anymore. I don't have to like sip a cup of tea a certain way or meditate a certain way. I just go into my mastery, which is really the net result, like a runner on a track. They just go into it because they naturally are doing all the things they need to do to stay.
Well, we call that a professional.
Right.
I mean, she's an artist to her bones, and
Yep.
through gated work, she's able to just do it.
Yeah.
Without any.
Well, that's such a freedom when you drop into those spaces. I remember when I used to run marathons, it was like at mile 3 or 4, I would drop. That freedom in that space, even in training runs, was so powerful because everything falls away. You're just able to really shape space the way you want it without mental obstructions.
Yeah, I mean, and that's important. So here we are at the gateway. So the metaphorical gateway is hopefully what you've become: a watcher, a sensor of impression. Shifts within yourselves and within the environment, so you can discern whatever it is that you need from whatever it is that may hinder or harm or slow your journey to your optimal potential, which would be higher states of consciousness, higher levels of being. So this idea of being also comes into play when we start talking about this, but that's another talk. That's down the road.
We're progressing there.
When we're talking about right now, we're just talking about these steps permit us to begin to take responsibility for the journey. It's like laying the foundation.
Right.
The gatekeeper has to wake up in order to discern impressions, dangerous impressions from helpful impressions, a way to discern dietary needs, a way to discern energetic needs, a way to put it upon you to perceive things in such a way where you're not injured, where whatever is happening, you can begin to transform and turn those opportunities and those moments that life has to give you into higher states of
Right. And so that would be the samurai, or even taking the Heart Sutra into action, that really energy doesn't have an opinion. They're beyond the right or wrong in the moment. Energy doesn't have an opinion. So as we were talking about food earlier, that, even if something's perceptually, by today's standards, not good for you, you can actually take the energy and the chi of that food and actually create it into divinity based on your perception. You can find God in I don't say a saltine, let's say.
That's it. I mean, that's key. That's it. That's the shifting. Once you've received enough understanding of the truth of what you are, you can begin to jump on those opportunities where maybe you would feel an emotional a reactionary tinge, and then take that reactionary tinge and catch it, and then redirect that energy into a higher emotional state,
Right.
a higher level of consciousness. So you're actually harnessing.
You can feel it in you.
Harness the emotional aspect and drive it up into service, which then taps into higher levels of intelligence, higher levels
Right.
of wisdom, and then from that place, from that jolt of energy, from that blessing of that difficult moment, turns into this wonderful opportunity.
Yeah, and those
teachable moments.
Teachable moments, yeah, teachable moments. But it's an electromagnetic surge in your body. You physically can feel it at times, and so that's something that can be harnessed. Or if it's coming in, maybe someone else's suffering's coming towards you, you don't have to react, as you're saying, to it. So you can either neutralize it or transform that energy. And a good samurai will take it all in and do.
All right. Well, you're a good samurai.
I don't know about that. I think in my studio I do pretty good, but I don't know in everyday life I do so good all the time.
Well,
I try.
Well, the point is how.
Yeah.
So how is so? Give us a couple of examples of like the gatekeeper being awake and a gatekeeper falling asleep.
Yeah. So a gatekeeper that's awake is going to notice, and whether it's in the physical body, like I said, it's an electrical charge. The more aware you are, you're having a physiological response in the system. So even if someone's angry, they start to get heated. But you'll notice even before then, the more aware you are, you'll feel it rise up. And so rather than dive into that and react and become a runaway train, it's right at that moment that you could harness that energy and transform it into something.
Okay. Well,
right?
Be specific.
So let's say, I'll give one. So right when this COVID started, I found myself getting agitated at the different municipalities and how they were handling a virus. So rather than go just completely get angry, I immediately decided to take that energy and go into action. So I wrote the governor, I wrote the mayor, I wrote the federal government, offering my services because I felt that would be a better use of my energy versus being angry and just emoting about it. So in that moment, there's that ability to transform that energy into action that can be beneficial to all and to offer the services, irregardless if they're accepted or not. Where it could go wrong is you feel the energy rise up and you start lashing out at everyone around you without awareness. It's more like you're angry, but you don't know at what. And then you pick a fight with someone that you love. You created an obstruction for someone you love or yourself. And at that point, then you're degrading your system and your gatekeeper is definitely asleep.
Well, and what's the result of that?
The result of that is that that's going to send you back down the mountain.
So how can you tell you went back down the mountain?
You can feel it. I think anyone that takes action that's not aligned with I know we're going to go into ethics later. You can, when you're not, if you're self-aware and you take actions that are not in harmony with your inner code of ethics, you're going to feel it. And you might then be like, you take those pictures and you're like, I don't want to really repeat that again. It may be easier said than done.
But physiologically, what's the result?
You're depleted.
Depleted, right.
Yep.
So it's like the energy is down and then you're left at the bottom of the mountain,
yep.
energetically speaking.
Yep.
Because those finer substances you may have cultivated, that integrity that is in the ethers, your aura that's expanding from your body is it's blowing up, right? It's like you don't have the magical relationship with the environment, your body's depleted, your thinking process is a little different, the world's not as fresh, everything might feel a little numb.
Yep.
And so all of those are indicators that we've fallen off the mountain.
Correct. And so
not that I would know what that felt like.
All of us, I'm sure, know what that feels like.
No way.
But the more self-aware you can get up back on the metaphorical horse again, sooner than later. And that's why, I use the metaphor of an athlete, I think, because there's such an immediate response with their actions and their performance, is that there's not a lot of wiggle room with their routines. I mean, how they hydrate even before their events, all those things keep them, it's a very slippery road sometimes. And people might be like, I don't want to really worry about it too much. But when you're going for, enlightenment or higher states of consciousness, the stakes are even greater than an Olympic athlete or a master artist or performer or scientist or author.
Greater than? How do you measure that?
Well, because the stakes are higher. So
how are the stakes higher for a great? You said a great athlete, a great.
Yeah. So a great athlete may be in say 90% of their life, that fine oiled machine, maybe 95, but there's still 5% that they're not. So that they would have to, that additional 5%, not all, this is just a generalization, but say they would had 5%, and we've known some greats, great boxers or wrestlers or something, and then they have like a 5% that can bring them down the mountain pretty quickly. And that usually catches up to them, whether it's a lifestyle habit or anything like that. But someone that's going for enlightenment, there's no room for 5%. There's no room for 3%. You have to go all the way.
Well, I wouldn't underestimate mindset of the great,
No,
the great artist.
of course,
The
and
great
that's why I
athlete.
use it.
I would say that it's easy to perceive enlightenment within actions that they are taking because of the superior way in which they navigate such treacherous waters.
Right. Well, of
So,
course,
and
but
how they
there's
do it with such grace and ease,
yeah.
and how somehow they're on another level than the people around them, and we can assume that they've crossed over into a realm where somebody else has not, in order for them to give them the sensitivity to the environment in which they're excelling in.
Yeah. I would agree. There's like just knowing a couple people very adept masters walking in human bodies, there's 100% there for them.
Well, the proof for you would be, how would you determine 100%? What skill set do they have to prove that they're 100%?
They're enlightened beings walking in human bodies.
Yeah, but they would have to prove that through a skill set.
Yeah,
Correct?
they
would have to be able to do things that other people would not. What would be the things that they would do that other people?
Well, some of them are metaphysical. Some are, they can shape space in ways that are unexplainable. But the most rudimentary, I would say, is they're living beacons for compassion. They've suffered great adversity, and you are the happiest people you would ever meet. They have some skills that are downright unexplainable that I've witnessed.
You would have to explain those in order what you're assuming to be a skill.
Okay, well, someone that can go into hard earth and with a stick, poke a hole and put a seed in the ground and cover it up. Hard earth, no special composted soil, no irrigation system, and have such harmony with the earth, the sky, and his sacredness can grow acres and acres of crops of bountiful food for his community. It was kind of amazing to see the interconnectivity between the prayer and the practice, and then the efforts of something so simple as farming, but nothing other than prayer and the will of communing with the elements created those fields. Because there's all odds would be against any farmer that would look at hard dirt and that. So that being is super special in my mind's eye, and a reminder that how maybe out of balance we are as a human species, that person can stick literally like a jack of the beanstalk and create acres and acres of food by his hands alone. No other help. So pretty powerful. That's one example. Yeah.
Well, I mean, and for the normal viewer, or unless we're enlightened, of course, that might seem like a stretch, because a lot of it's not up to him. It's seemingly a lot up to the circumstances and to the environment, to whether crops show or not. Well, so the rational mind would be, you're still in the ambiguous land.
Not really. This is high, hot desert. There's no, very dry. These are the Hopi Indians, so give people a sense if they've been out there. The earth is very hard. Their whole ceremonial cycle is dedicated to their crops, and they're in constant proper action year round for each season, so that they can yield those crops. So that effort doesn't come when you just put the seed in the ground. There's a series of ceremonies and activities that lead to that moment, and the rain must come. And there's no pest control out there. There's no Monsanto seeds or Roundup. It's purely by the effort of that single farmer and all the activities they've taken all year round. And those efforts are for all, not just his tummy.
Oh, gotcha. Wow.
And that's what I mean. The different, like, that's the extra thing but I think athletes and artists are a great example that we can all maybe are more relatable.
Oh, well, no, most definitely. I think I'm getting to understand what it is that you're talking about, the metaphysics or the relationship or the dynamic between the person and the environment that they're in, and them imposing their will in such a way that encourages a bountiful harvest, right?
Yeah, well, communion, definitely. So, as if we bring it back to ourself, where we are here and now, we start to take efforts, and I think as we awaken our gatekeeper and the gatekeeper stays awake, it becomes more and more clear where those efforts are, because we all have innate gifts that are here to serve, humanity at large. And so for some of us, it might be the farmer. Some of us, it might be the scientist. Some of us, it might be the performing artist.
If you perceive great or potential, or an individual that steps into a realm within a skill set and manages to stay there in a higher state of consciousness, we can say that they'll, on one level or another, will achieve a greatness. Great with absolute failures. It's how you are moving into the
Right.
how you are moving into the activity and how you are coming out of the activity that determines your mastery. It's how you are. It's not whether you can hit the target or not hit the target, as Zen in the art of archery
Absolutely.
clearly showed that you can be a master by never hitting the target once.
Yeah.
But how you are moving into that activity and how you are moving out of it and how you maintain that effort will determine your level of mastery. And self-observation through the present, in order to take nice, clear sensory photographs of oneself within all aspects of one's life, gives us a fresh insight into who we are in our lives. And it's very important to have our own understanding of our self-worth, our own self-esteem, built upon accurate observations of what we're capable of.
Absolutely.
And even to observe the what you would
jagged little edges.
Well, the jagged big edges, but to understand that, hey, I can catch that, and then as I catch these things and I learn a different mastery, which is another lesson, the transformation of negative emotions into higher states of consciousness. Boom. Well, we need that muscle. We need that self-observation.
Right.
We need that gatekeeper awake at the gates, which
hopefully
becomes us.
Right.
Our
And this is
idea
why
of
these
us-
are called practices,
Yeah.
and these are good foundational practices for us all, I feel, to revisit right now and engage in, because obviously collectively we slid down the mountain a little bit, and it's a beautiful moment to re-engage with observing and waking up our gatekeeper. I think that's why so many people are shouting so much.
Why?
Because they're trying
Oh
to
my
wake up their
goodness,
gatekeeper.
Wake up! Wake up! Wake up! Wake up! You know what I think it's time for? I think it's time for another Dante song.
Random Rab. Was it Random Rab? Someone told us we are really in the age of the Aquarius.
We are really in the age of Aquarius.
Yeah, so the
let's-
first one of his EP, and that's his EP's named after Aquarius by Dante Marino.
Wow, let's see what he's got here in this one. It's such a beautiful song. The song may enlighten you.
Round the circle, fast and slow. I kiss the sun and let
think he was given that name to elevate us all out of Dante's Inferno.
You know, I was thinking in that wonderful little piece of music, how to educate that, how to determine the difference between that gatekeeper and when the gatekeeper falls to sleep. You know, he may fall asleep at the gate. He may get distracted at the gate. He may become one-sided at the gate, which means if he becomes one-pointed, then all the other attacking impressions would slip by him, and he wouldn't see them because he'd be too obsessed with one thing and another. So that thing that kind of, you know, the ego gets a bad rap. That's too bad because we need it. But after self-observation, the ego is reformulated. So the self-observation tool is a way to reform the ego, which is a really powerful tool because it's the ego without consciousness is dangerous, potentially hurtful. And every time we move into the ego without consciousness, we explode our finer substances. We lose perspective for a moment. And it's that's another lesson where we understand at a certain point that the gatekeeper is not only, he's conscious. So just as a person would become conscious, they would be involved in one thing but aware of all of the other things. He would have a 360 awareness. He'd be aware of the world around him in another phase of like if my attention's over here, I'm involved in this, and I stay present within my whatever my activity might be. If I stay present with whatever activity I might have going on, I can be aware of my surroundings as I take care of my business, and then able to counter other obstructions coming my way. It's the mind of the samurai or the martial artist to engage, but to not lose sight of awareness within a 360 environment, because the dangers aren't going to come from your focus here. They're going to come from other angles, from behind.
And that's typically how it is. As you're rising higher, there are things that come from stage left and stage right that are there to, there are really opportunities to rise higher, but sometimes they can be perceived as something else. So, you know, the good samurai, when we talked about transforming energy, is when you see it come in, it's almost like, ooh, what else is around, what potential's around here to transform this energy into feeding what I'm going for.
I become myopic. I become
Right.
singularly focused, and I become almost like a horse with blinders on.
Yep.
Whereas if I engage, and my
Yeah.
ego is engaged, but I remain conscious and
Right.
present,
Yep.
now I become this egoist, where I can then be responsible for not only this act, but being able to adapt to
Right.
to surrounding opportunities coming at me,
Right.
or trying to get past me.
Yeah.
So by being engaged, I am able to put up a block
Yeah.
for bad impressions. I'm able to navigate and take responsibility for everything coming my direction and manage one situation and another situation by remaining conscious, but actively engaging whatever circumstances the world may offer up to me, asking me to adapt to whatever it is that it needs me to adapt to.
Right.
And that's wow. Like, that's so important to understand.
Yeah. Well, I was sharing with you the other day about, I wrote my book because I wrote about masks, taking off our masks since we're masks, but Osho described it really well, and I went into further detail about it, that you take, you know, Zorba the Greek, your ego, your outer self, and your inner self, Buddha consciousness, and you merge the two. And that creates this beautiful awakening so that you can, I think as Jesus was quoted to saying, I'm in the world but not of it. So you're participating, but you're not being reacting to it. You're serving it.
Absolutely, and you know, I want to remind you guys as the audience why we're here, and Oneness Talk Radio, and what a beautiful opportunity it is to share your own conscious experiences. And you'll be able to write into us as we have these sessions live. You'll be able to ask us questions, and we'll open it up to questions for for 10-15 minutes, and we'll be able to expand on whatever questions you have about presence or self-observation, or the gatekeeper, or choice and wrong choice, and how to discern and make decent decisions that help you evolve along the way, so you can realize your potential in this life, and take the tools that are feeding myself, and I guess Suzanne is using them as well to feed herself, to try to nourish and to keep a firm footing in the world and keep our heads on our shoulders, and allows us to enjoy life. And that's what Oneness Talk Radio is about. That's what this show's about. And each week we'll expand on the steps of, we'll build on the shoulders of giants. We'll build on Eckhart. We'll build on Deepak. Right? Listen, heard some Deepak by default the other day. It was really engaging. He's always refreshing. And any other masters, whether you're talking about Marcus Aurelius or Epictetus or Abraham Lincoln or any of the great poets, Walt Whitman, any of the classics, all of these people managed to step into the other side and to create great works of art. And that's what we want to do too, is encourage the arts through this particular vehicle, through consciousness, and to understand how to engage the world once present. What do we do once we're present? And there's lots of wonderful little ways to perceive the world.
Well, and I think, bringing up all those greats, we can kind of see the impression that we leave. And, those great works sometimes aren't realized till after someone's gone, like a Van Gogh. Maybe his paintings were given away at his funeral, I think, but people appreciated his greatness, so
Khalil Gibran.
Yeah.
I mean, after a guy died in a gutter.
Yeah.
He's
So
a horrible...
sometimes those efforts aren't, you might be burning off karma and then laying something so for, years and years and generations and generations keep studying. Wow. So
hopefully there's an appreciation for the classics as we move forward. It seems I think if anything, people emulating the lessons from those masters should resonate through eternity.
Well, the younger generations want to bring back the 1970s, so I see typewriters, hopefully not 8-track players, but record players. I'm ready for them. My next poetry book, I'm going to etch them into stone on top of just being in a book.
Well, I still have my bell bottoms. Still wear my bell bottoms.
That's awesome. You're ready. I mean, kids are roller skating again.
Yeah, I think the bell bottoms, and then the holes in the bell bottoms happened in the 80s.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Maybe it was 60s to 70s to 80s. I can't
remember. I appreciating those. And so I would think, for all of you out there listening right now, we have, as inspired, you have the opportunity to practice self-observation, to start to wake up your gatekeeper, start to determine who you are based on those pictures that you've been taking, those cosmic selfies, and see what it reveals and how you maybe self-realize, which is the most profound thing. It's, I think, sticks more with us when we have self-realizations versus someone telling us something. It's much more profound when we see it, and then we can start to make those shifts.
Wow, self-realizations.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a big word. We're definitely going to get to that too.
Yeah, absolutely.
What that terminology may mean for those that have crossed over, self-realization is the end game in terms of where we want to stay for the rest of our lives in order to get the most out of this life. Self-realization is awesome.
All right. Well, I think our time flew by really quickly.
Wow, look at that. Well, let's get out of here with some more Dante. What do you say? You want more Dante? You want more Dante? I know you guys want more Dante.
Give us some more of her stuff there. That might be a little Shiva at the end. I don't know. You choose. But thank you all for being here. This is Suzanne Toro and Thomas Ardavati with SolVibes and Indie Creators and Oneness Talk Radio.
Yeah, I guess she stopped talking. So as I was trying to set this.
Oh,
I
can keep riffing.
How about it? You want the first song or the second song? I think we just heard the other one. Let's hear this. Let's hear Dante's second song, and bring him out. And you all have a wonderful, wonderful evening.
share